We watch enthusiasts find all kinds of excuses to justify filling in another slot in our treasure boxes. This cheap little gem has just given me the perfect one. I've been doing interval training to stay fit for several years and have since hoped for a watch with a built-in interval timer. That would be better than my trusty kitchen timer, obviously. I stuck to an Apple Watch for about a year despite realizing very soon that having to charge it every day or at least every other was something that was, let me just say, not a thing for me. Just as getting all-day notifications on my wrist turned out to be, but a case that quickly deteriorated with daily exposure to sweat on a watch that was just as heavily marketed for fitness. I just had to give up on it, and on Apple entirely. Then I switched to this G-Shock. I got one despite hating how absurdly big it wore on my tiny wrist, but having to pair it with my phone every time I had to set my intervals, which was a pain to do, and again the need to charge it occasionally, very quickly proved too cumbersome. I prefer leaving my phone for training sessions, so one of these looked worth considering. I had one in my Amazon cart but had to get something else to get the total up and qualify for free shipping. Easy. It was for sure again going to be either a strap or a cheap Casio. This showed up and I liked the vintage Iron Man looks of it. Looked at a few reviews on YouTube before completing my order, only to discover that this W93 had a countdown timer with an auto-repeat feature. I automatically knew how I could exploit that for my needs. Ended up ditching the Gym Boss timer for just another Casio. A handsome digital field watch in my opinion, which I would be featuring in my next video. So here it is, my new and almost perfect training watch. No need for regular charging, small and lightweight, tough enough for my intended use, a workable timer, and with a price that would allow me to focus on nothing else but getting intensity and quality into my workouts. Seeing it as the F91 sportier brother, I'll frequently compare these two as I go through the specifications and features. I think I'll start with the size comparison. That's 38.5 across the widest parts of the case, excluding the pushers, which is about 34.5 on the F91, 42.5mm from lug to lug, 38 on the F91, and with a thickness of 11mm, but just 8.5 on the F91. The F91 is clearly the smaller watch as suggested by those numbers, but seeing both on my wrist, I wouldn't say one is practically larger than the other. These are both small watches which I think fit perfectly on my 6-inch wrist. Unlike that on the F91, we have here a slightly recessed crystal, making it a bit less prone to scratching. Stainless steel case back held in place by 4 standard screws for 50 meters of water resistance. I really wish Casio had gone all in for 100, but hey, that's more than enough for doing laps in the pool, and definitely a notable improvement over the 30-meter rating on the F91. Plastic strap with a plastic buckle. Apart from the sportier design and added length, this seems to be made from the same material as that on the F91. Both watches have an 18mm lug width, but the more conventional lugs on the W93 make it more suitable for strap changes. Adding to that, this watch uses universal spring bars unlike those on the F91, which lock in place more like push pins. Comparing the functions on both watches is when we see that their similarities go nowhere beyond the appeal for being cheap, small, and lightweight retro pieces, with the W93 now starting to present itself as a conservatively sized alternative to more capable Casios, as the 5-button layout clearly suggests. The watch has 5 basic functions assigned to different screens that can be cycled through with every push of the mode button. To keep this video short, I won't be going through each of those functions in detail, but rather pointing out those that I think set this watch apart from other Casios in this price range. I may consider putting out a separate video for that if I receive several requests in the comments. At the home screen, we see a day, month, date display on the top line compared to the day date on the F91. While we're here, it may be worth noting that the digits on this watch are bigger and bolder. This is simply the more legible watch, especially when the lights are out. The better screen illumination and a very accessible dedicated light button just put this watch beyond comparison with something like an F91. And look at this, auto light activation with the flick of the wrist, a feature that is quite reserved for more expensive G-Shocks. On to my favorite feature, the interval timer. Well, it technically is just a countdown timer that can be set from a second all the way to 24 hours. But the auto-repeat setting, which basically goes on until you get it to stop, together with the really audible 10-second alert in between cycles, make this watch good enough for interval training. I'm sure those interested in this watch for the very same application know exactly what I mean. Now on to less notable features that deserve mention on the list. Look at the top line on the display. The primary time is displayed across all function dedicated screens, including that for the secondary time. A quick jump to the home screen with a single press of the mode button is possible from any of the 4 other functions. And setting adjustments for all fields in every function can be made using either button on the right side of the case, the start button for keying in an increment, and the split button for keying in a step back. For the price, there's really nothing to complain about. Maybe the excessively long strap, which shouldn't bother those with bigger wrists, but thanks to the conventional lug design, strap options are basically unlimited. I seriously don't know why this watch doesn't get talked about that much in the community. Well, it is a bit confused within the Casio catalog I see. It's got too many features to belong to their vintage collection, too dainty to qualify for their sporty lineup, and it ain't tough enough to get a Baby G badge either. Whatever, it has its own vintage appeal, features that'll serve me really well, dimensions perfect for my wrist, and all the toughness that I would ever need. Hope you liked the video and hope to see you in the next.